Now we need to switch into doing stand-up. I have to think about what my set's gonna be. We're gonna be in Astoria at QED Queens in Astoria. One of my favorite places to perform. A 5 o'clock show, which is very early. There may not be a lot of people there, but if there's 6 people or 5 people in the crowd, they can hear my jokes, and that's fine. It'll be some material up top that I've had for a long time. It's some of like my favorite material, just a little bit, and then I'll do a lot of stuff that's like been developed in the past 6 months that I started and developed in Mexico, but I've never like tried in New York. The good thing is when you do it in New York, comedians are so funny here that they have a high standard, the audience. So like if they laugh here, you're like, oh, you're onto something. If they don't laugh, you're like, oh, I got to work harder on this joke. Okay, if people are laughing here at that joke, like that joke is onto something. Whereas in Mexico, if like some people in English were laughing at the joke, I'm like, well, I haven't tried it in New York. Like even talking to other comedians, seeing other comedians that, you know, you get a lot of ideas. Honestly, you get a lot of ideas. It's a good place to like get your brain alive to like improve the jokes. So I'm hoping this month to like really like keep working on these jokes and keep improving them, keep elevating them. I'm like, I don't want to talk about my process. It's mine. If I talk about the ideas coming and like how I hope they're coming, then maybe they won't come. Everything with ideas is like, you feel like it's like a magic. But it is magic, but it's also like when you put the time and the work in, you know, that's kind of when the magic comes. If you put the time in, you put the work in, you know, and your mental illness doesn't get in the way, which it does, then you know, you can develop really, get better and better jokes. Let's see if we can work out a couple of these jokes. I do have the jokes about language, so it's like I'm working some of this stuff out, but it's weird in Mexico for me because the Mexicans embrace my Spanish, but sometimes I'll be in the cab and I'll be talking in Spanish for 20 minutes with a taxi driver, and then he'll say to me in Spanish, so how's it going with the Spanish? Bitch, that's what I've been talking to you fluently in for the last 30 minutes. I guess it hasn't been going very well from your perspective. And then people will try to say, they'll try to recover, and they'll be like, oh, but your Spanish is very good. You have very good, and okay, well, I'm not giving you a bigger tip. They'll try, but you have very good Spanish. I've got to be like on my game with Spanish, because if I'm not like on my game, they start speaking to me in Spanglish, baby, and you can never get back to regular Spanish. Once they think you're at the low level, and they'll be like, I have to be like, no, yo hablo español, I speak Spanish. And they're like, yes, muy bueno, you speak it muy bueno. I'm like, no, I just want to go back. Can I talk to somebody else? I can't be in this conversation anymore. And then they say, oh, I can tell you're still practicing. I can tell you're practicando. They say that a lot sometimes. Why are you telling me that? Why would you tell somebody that I can tell you're practicing? It's not a compliment. Anyway, so there's something like, those are stuff that I'm like working on a little bit. People are confused with my identity in Mexico. People are like, is he French? Is he German? Is he Lebanese? They never think I'm Jewish until we get naked. And then they're like, oh my God, ¿por qué? They don't know my identity because I'm a gringo, but I'm a spicy gringo. I'm not a white bread gringo. They don't know that I'm a gringo because my Spanish doesn't suck. And so Mexicans think I'm Brazilian because my Spanish is good, but it's off. And that's what Portuguese is, off Spanish. Those are some ideas.
Keenan Steiner, my friend Mike. All right. This is also Mike. That's also Mike.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, good. You're good.
No. We're getting the show going, guys. This guy's a hilarious guy. Actually, just came back recently from Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. So please put your hands together right now for Keenan Steiner.
Welcome to the show. Some gays, they hate pussy so much they won't even eat a clam. They'll be like, oh, I couldn't eat oysters or clams. It reminds me of vagina. How could you even eat it? Meanwhile, they're slurping a butthole. And how could you even? I'm not that kind of a gay. I eat all the mollusks. I don't mind at all. Nothing because I like vagina. I think vagina is pretty good.
The asshole causes a lot of problems. Somebody asked me recently if I would ever be with a woman again, and I don't think so, but it's not for the reason you think. It's not because of the vagina. The vagina's pretty good. The problem is everything around the vag, trash. Mexicans are great. They like that I speak Spanish, but it gets weird sometimes. Like sometimes I'm in the cab, and I'll be talking to the taxi driver for 20 minutes in Spanish. And at the end of the 20 minutes, he'll say to me, "And how's it going with the Spanish?" Oh, you mean the language I've been talking to you fluently in for the last 20 minutes? I guess not very well from your perspective. And then they'll try to recover, and they'll say, "Well, your Spanish is very good. And I'm like, "Well, I'm not giving you a bigger tip." Right? Like your Spanish has to be on point from the start. You cannot fumble from the beginning. Because if I screw up my Spanish and if it's not perfect, some people pick up on it. They start speaking to me like, "Okay, you, Keenan, you go to the bathroom, and encantado means nice to meet you." They start speaking to me in Spanglish, baby. And once you go into Spanglish, baby, you can never get out of it. I'm like, no, I just want to go back to regular Spanish. When can we do that? I want to do that. They're like, "Oh, it's nice that you're practicing. It's really good. I can tell that you're practicing." I'm like, who would tell somebody else that you could tell that you're practicing? This has been so fun. Thank you for being here. My stand-up hour is July 2nd on this very stage. So I hope you join me for that. Thanks to DVD, and give it up for your host, Matt Fishman.
Yeah, you going to Keenan Steiner, everyone. July 2nd, check it out. Here, July 2nd, running it down.
I don't know. I think like the one line about like being in the one line in the cab where the driver tells me how's it going with the Spanish. Usually it hits in Mexico. It hits as soon as I say and as soon as he says and how's it going with the Spanish. And this time it didn't. But then the lines after that worked. The lines right after that where I was like, "Oh, you mean the language I'm speaking to fluently in for the last half hour?" That worked. So, and then when I went into, I don't have the rhythm of the next joke out yet, where Spanglish baby, let's call it. I just have to figure it out a little bit more. Like, I was kind of like having some anxiety before the set, so I couldn't memorize the joke. I couldn't like get it all out that I wanted to get out. So yeah, I think like I didn't do all the jokes that we talked about on the cab ride over here, all the New Mexico jokes, because it's like if I do too many new jokes at once, I think my brain, it's easy for me to forget, and I didn't want to like overwhelm my brain because all those jokes are kind of like they're all written heavy jokes, writer heavy jokes, word heavy jokes. Wow, they're the writer. There's a lot of writing in those jokes, and as opposed to jokes that like come naturally or have like a movement to them or like have a very obvious punchline. So like each word in those jokes is important. One time I told a cab driver, it was actually the last time I was in New York, and I had left this guy's house who, you know, I've seen it now and again. I said to the cab driver, "Do you ever go to see somebody and you like get the feeling when you see them that they don't give a shit about you anymore or something?" And he was like, no, I don't know what you're talking. That never happened to me. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Thanks so much." I would say Mexico's stance towards Judaism is unknowledgeable. So I hit the stage one time. This is real, that happened. This host introduced me on the stage, who didn't know me. All he knew was my last name, Steiner, which sounds harsh to some of them. It sounds like German or something. And he said, "The next comedian coming to the stage, I don't know him, but give a very warm welcome to Keenan Steiner. And he did the fucking high seal to introduce me, and I got to the stage, and I was like, "I'm a Jew. I'm Jewish." That was very weird. It's the first time that's ever happened to me. He looked a little red in the face. I don't look Jewish to them, so they don't know. Still, no one should ever do that. If you don't know, don't like guess that the next comedian's a Nazi. Like if you have no definite knowledge that they may be a Nazi sympathizer, I mean, is that the worst? People complain that like, "Oh, they introduced me as like the only woman and on the show," or like they introduced me like, which is bad, don't do it. But it's like, that's nothing to being introduced as a Nazi. I mean, that is really not needed. You never need to introduce anybody as a Nazi unless you're literally at like a KKK convention. That's the only time you should introduce someone as like, the next guy is really a staunch Nazi. A big round of applause.